Hello and welcome to this week's BizSmart Lunch and Learn webinar. Our weekly webinars are aimed to provide advice and share knowledge amongst business owners on key business topics and specialist areas. This is part of our service to our Smart Room members, and if you're not already a member or a BizSmart client and would like to access our archive of webinars, then please visit our website biz-smart.co.uk and go to the Smart Room page. Our host joining me today is Jill Hutchinson from Aardvark Marketing. But before we start the webinar, can I ask you all to use the question mark function on your screen to post any questions that you may have, and Jill will answer them all at the end of the session. Thank you. Over to you, Jill.
Thank you, Caroline. Good morning, everyone. What we're going to talk about today is marketing automation, and hopefully just take you through what it is, how it helps particular businesses, and whether it's actually relevant to you. And you can then make an informed decision about whether you should investigate in a little bit more detail and whether it's an option that would work in your business. But I'm going to start with a generic sort of health warning, if you like. I know a lot of businesses feel increasingly put under pressure to go down this digital marketing route, whether that's more social media or upgrading their website, or marketing automation falls into that category. But please don't forget that older marketing methods such as direct mail and print advertising can be just as effective, and sometimes much more effective if you properly plan and execute them. So having got that government health warning out of the way, let's have a look and delve into marketing automation. Okay, so what is it? It's essentially a powerful set of tools, software tools, that allows an organisation to engage with people in a carefully planned and organised manner, but it's done by the visitor to your website choosing the content that's relevant to them. So they self-select. Because it's a very powerful tool, I wouldn't advise you to just go and give it to your junior marketing executive in your business. It's not a good thing to do, just tell them go away and fix it. It's a little bit like giving a Ferrari to a learner driver. Accidents will happen if you do that. So it's a good tool, but you have to think about how you use it. And I always know when the company's bought a new system, for example, an emailing system, because I often get inundated with email from them, which are often poorly composed and they're irrelevant, and they just beg me to unsubscribe and disengage with them. So you can spot when a company has bought one of these systems and is using it to change the world. However, top performing companies use them, so why do they use them and what's the benefit for them? So if we think about how buyers are engaging with us in our businesses, the situation has changed a lot recently. Buyers used to have quite limited information about you. Now they have so much information, sometimes they even have more than they can use. And a buyer will pre-vet your company in advance of contacting them. So they'll look at things like your account record, they'll look at your credit history, they'll certainly check out your website, they'll look at your social media presence, they might even stalk and check out key members of your team before they will engage with you. So they're doing all of that behind the scenes, and if you don't have web tracking, you don't know that's going on. The other thing that happens is that nurturing these leads, looking after people who are visiting your website and seeing how they're engaging with you, is now almost seen as a requirement by many in the marketing industry. Certainly the big players see this as a requirement, a must-have. The average sales cycle has increased a lot. It's changed over the last 5 years. We reckon it's increased by 22% in terms of the time it takes. And typically a lot more people are looking at your website and looking at you, and there are typically much more decision makers involved, which makes the selling process more complicated. And marketing automation can help you manage that complexity. So the difference between a normal marketing, if you like, and marketing automation is that instead of shouting our message to everybody, these processes allow you to engage with each customer, each visitor to your website in a very personal way. So if you implement it properly, you can have all these conversations going on at once and you don't have to conduct them all in real time. So if we look at those major points for having a system, you can generate more leads, because you can start identifying anonymous website visitors. So instead of just using Google Analytics to tell you you've got so many people looking at particular pages in your website, you know who that person is and you know which particular page they're looking at. You can capture their data by asking them to fill in a form with some basic information about themselves, and so you're filling up your sales funnel constantly, and that's happening 24/7, and you don't have to do that manually. It increases the number of what we call qualified leads by nurturing people to your website, sending them content that they want to look at. You can score their interest. So if they look at particular pages, look at a particular product or service, or they're interested in a blog about a particular topic, you know what they're interested in, and you can have a much better conversation with them. So you get better qualification of the leads that you want to talk to. And that information drives more sales. So you can identify when a lead is sales ready by what they're looking at and the frequency of what they're looking at, and you can follow up as quickly as possible. So you can feed this information through to a sales team, and the sales team can convert that sale usually quicker than if they haven't engaged with this process. Certainly improves cross-selling, and depending on your sales process you might be able to upsell. If you take on people on a basic product and you want to upsell them something a bit more valuable, it's good for that. The other reason that marketing automation is liked by the industry is it's easy to see what the return on investment is for every activity you run this way. The digital marketing reporting system has standard reporting tools that will tell you what your ROI is, and that's beloved by all the finance and accountants in your business. Okay, so if you want to choose automation systems, there are lots of different systems on the market. Some of the things you need to consider, first of all, is the functionality. And I always say have two lists. Have an essential, we must be able to do X, Y, and Z, and the desirable list. It would be nice to have A, B, or C, for example. And then there's requirement for specialist skills. So you might have some skills in-house, you might have to train people in-house, you might have to buy in external support. And usually an SME will be buying in external support at this stage. The cost varies. It could be you get charged per system, so you have to pay to actually have the software to start with. Sometimes there's a cost per user added on to that. Don't forget you will need some training if you haven't ever done this before. Payments can be upfront. Certain companies like you to pay upfront and commit you into a long-term contract. Others do allow you to pay as you go, which gives you a little bit more flexibility. And don't forget the ability of a system to communicate easily with your other IT systems. So they have to communicate with your website, has to be able to communicate with your existing CRM system. So that's the sort of technology side and the cost side. My next list is marketing materials. So is there somebody in your business that knows that your sales and marketing strategy is right? If you've got the wrong strategy, automating a process that's wrong just gets you more wrong results. It's not going to help you. You've got to have the strategy right in the first place for your sales pipeline and your marketing strategy, and then automation will speed things up for you. But if the process isn't right, automation won't help you. So your marketing plan is going to need to create enough content to feed your automation machine on a timely basis, and you've got to have a system for creating that content and approving it. So if you haven't got that system in place, no amount of automation is going to help you. So you're going to need more content, so make sure you've got a process that makes sure the content you create is good and it fits into your process. So who's responsible for that? And you need to have a website that's ready to allow you to automate. So you'll probably want a blog, you'll probably be able to create landing pages, you'll need to add some web tracking code so you can see which visitors are on which page, and you'll probably want to link easily to social media. So if your website doesn't do all of that, you might need a website change before you can think about automating your process. Other factors, we now get on to data and data protection. Usually with marketing automation, the data quality, the best data you have, is more important than quantity. So go for quality rather than quantity. You'll need to have complete lists because you'll want to start segmenting your audiences. And I would usually advise a business starting from scratch that an organic list creation that you do in-house, you build yourself, is usually superior to buying in data, because you buy in data, you get quantity, but you don't always get quality. So typically, this organic list creation is slower, but you get more reliable data, so it will be more effective once you put it into an automation system. And lastly, it's very tempting to dive in when you've got a wonderful new bit of kit, to design loads of new processes, get really excited, but if they're not tried and tested first, then this could just be a waste of your time and your money. So it's much better if you've got a proven sales and marketing process to start with, and then you automate that. Quite often we start with pens and paper with some of our customers, working out what that process should be, and we'll pilot it before we even think about automating it. So don't get excited and dive in. You'll end up with a confusing mess of lists. You'll get all sorts of what they call workflows, which is guiding the customer through that process. You'll get a confusing lead scoring system. It won't benefit your sales team. So, for example, I worked with a client 3 or 4 years ago now who had invested in a system called Infusionsoft. They insisted they didn't need a marketing plan. They just wanted to design 5 new processes to run 5 themed workshops. It took days of my effort to get this working in Infusionsoft. We had to resort for some part of that process to an IT consultant, which was costly. So all that time and effort went into this process, and it was just wiped out on a whim when I had a meeting with a director, and he just decided, oh, we're not going to do that now, we're going to do something else. So marketing automation will work for you if you've got a planned process and you know it works. Don't just be tempted to buy it and stick anything into the machine. It won't work. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to a system that we recommend. This one is called Sharpspring. You may or may not have heard of it, but there are reasons we recommend it. The first is it's a very cost-effective option for SMEs. It includes everything you need on the functionality, and it's very intuitive and easy to use. So you get web tracking where you can see who's visited your website. It has a lead scoring system. It has the automation processes. You can manage your email. It communicates easily with any CRM system that we've come across, and it allows you to track more than one sales pipeline. For example, in our own business, we have a pipeline for referrers, we have a pipeline for sales, and we have one for cross-selling and upselling. So this will track identified individuals, not just numbers that you get from Google Analytics, and the whole process is logged by the system. You can see exactly what they've been doing. And there's no long-term contractual obligation. You can pay as you go, you can cancel it at any time, which is really useful for SMEs thinking about limited budgets. So that's the reason we recommend it. I've got warnings for you about Infusionsoft. It's extremely versatile. They market to SMEs, but you usually end up relying on an external consultant to build automation systems. It's extremely flexible. It's almost too flexible. It's a long-term contract, expensive. It doesn't actually include the web tracking, which is one of the most useful things that the Sharpspring system has. You might come across something called lead forensics. Again, this is something that was designed for big businesses, and this just does the web tracking. So it doesn't do the other things, it just does the web tracking. It does it very well, but again, you're tied into a long-term contract. It's expensive. It was designed for larger companies to use, and although they'll offer you a 3-month trial, it's insufficient for most SMEs to assess whether it would benefit the business or not. So don't go for those. You might come across something called HubSpot, very active in the market. HubSpot is an excellent product. There's absolutely nothing wrong with HubSpot, but it is expensive, typically more than twice what you would pay for Sharpspring, and very similar in the way they operate. So having bought your system, if that's what you decide to do, you then have to implement it. And Aardvark, here we believe in having a structured, project-managed way of implementing automation. So you are making progress in the right order and everything's working. You can test and measure as you go through. So I'll take you through the process that we would typically take one of our customers implementing this. So first of all, we will give them a checklist and we make sure that that's complete before they can start. So if you haven't got these things, there's no point getting started. You might as well defer your purchase if you like. So these are tried and trusted processes, so somewhere you can put the web tracking code. So if your website won't take a web tracking code, you might need to change your website. You need to sort and complete all your existing contacts and your data. So you might have data in a CRM system or even on an Excel system or an Access system. Make sure that's as complete and sorted as you can before you start. We like to see evidence that you've done newsletters or emails. What does that artwork look like? Because you're going to have to put that into your new system. So we'll have a look at examples of that. You need copies of your logos so that you can personalize this. You need to think about who in your business is going to be allowed to use this and who are the 5 key people who we're going to synchronize your email contacts with. And also very helpful is to have the map of the stages in your sales process, because you're going to put that sales process as a pipeline into the system. So this is our tried and tested route map, if you like. We also insist, if we're working with a company, that they have forward dates in the diary. So we have an intense 3-month program to get them up and running, and we insist on having those dates in the diary, and then the next sort of 8-9 months we'll have a monthly meeting to check that they're still making use of the process, that it's working for them and everything is going as it should. If that looks too daunting, we can of course implement it for you, but we would charge more for that. Typically a company doing that for you would charge more. It is quite labour intensive to start with. So the next step is the initial setup of your system. So we set up the users, so typically the 5 key contacts, and the role level. So who's allowed to alter anything, who's allowed to send out an email, who's allowed to link to a new blog or a new landing page. You can set up different levels within your business. So if you want to have overall control, you can have one super user and other levels underneath. Quite often the sales team would like access, but they don't need the same access as the marketing team, for example. You need to decide on your process. So what are the important landing pages? Because you're going to score those highly on your lead tracking. So you know if somebody's looked at a particular page that they're very interested in buying a particular product or service. So you need to think about which are your important pages on the website and set up your visitor ID settings. Then we create email templates, because email marketing is something that people find they're quite comfortable to implement quite quickly. So we set up email next, and then create the forms and the thank you pages. So if somebody fills in their details, they usually get some information from you. So it could be a free download, for example, but you're capturing who wants that and who's got that, and then you thank them for their interest in your company. So that's our first step. The next step is where it gets interesting. This is where we're adding our first automation sequence, and there are 2 stages for each sequence. Planning it first, so writing it out on a whiteboard or a piece of paper or however you like to plan, check that's going to work, what the feedback loops are, and then you implement it. So which lists are we going to use, which triggers are going to put people down into this process, and the workflows are the actions that you actually plan into the system. So that's the next step, is to put in your first automation system. Third step is to put in a sales pipeline, so you can track your leads as they go from vaguely interested in you to a bit more engaged with you to actually wanting a conversation with you. And again, for each pipeline, we plan it first. We make sure we've got that process drawn out. Everybody knows exactly what that process should be, and then the implementation is which lists, which triggers, which tasks are we going to get them to use to set them down each workflow. It's quite often appropriate to have more than one. If you sell different products, it makes sense to have different pipelines. So you can send that specialized content about a particular product, and then if they're interested in a second one, you put them down a second pipeline. That's absolutely fine. So we use referrers and sales pipelines in ours. So it's useful to have that, but to start with, we just set up one and get that right and get everybody comfortable with how the software actually works. Final step is the setting up of the lead scores, and this is the most valuable to the sales team. So again, each automation process will have a lead score. If somebody visits a particular page, or they do an action after a first action, they do a second, and then they do a third, each time they click on that and go further down the sales funnel, we give them a score, and the sales team can then concentrate on those visitors that have the highest score. So we're looking about whether the data is complete, we're looking about engagement, we're looking to track that journey. Is it a good fit with our business, or are they a good business for us? So you can start looking at them and seeing whether you want to engage with them. And then you can fit something called lead score decay. So your hot leads are people you need to speak to quickly. If they don't engage with you at that point, it's going to go colder. So you can set that into the system so that it gives the sales team the right numbers right the way through. And lastly, once you've done that, it's a plan, pilot, implement, measure, review cycle, which is just good practice in any management system. So you can start adding more sequences, more sales pipelines, and improve your lead scoring. So it's always best to pilot and review one process at a time before adding others. It's less confusing and you can make sure that it's working well for you and your business. It's also worthwhile checking that the sales team are getting leads that are suitably qualified and they're getting the right information to open a meaningful conversation so they can convert easily. So it's not just a marketing process, it has to feed through to the sales team. Are they getting the information they need, and is the conversion rate higher on the system than it was on the old system? So we have a system where our bot customers get very detailed support and training, a structured training program that goes for the first year of implementation, not just the first initial setup. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going to answer any questions in a moment. So essentially, the marketing automation systems can realise huge benefits to sales and marketing processes, but it does need careful planning, it does need good project management. It's going to take a lot of your time. So the implementation and review process is extremely important, because for most businesses this is a big step, it's a big investment in cost and in time. An initial MOT with us can help you decide whether automation is a realistic solution for your business, or whether there are other things you need to be doing first that will give you a better return on investment. And usually grant funding is available if you want to design and implement marketing automation. It's something that is looked upon favourably if you want to go ahead and get some help with that initial investment. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much, Jill. You have a number of questions coming through. The first one is from Sarah, and she asks, how effective would you say this activity would be, as I only have a very limited marketing budget?
Okay, so Sarah, the important thing is that the system is effective at sales conversion. A lot of marketing activity is not really concentrated on the sales funnel. If you get your process right, this can be extremely good at the sales conversion. It gives you a lot of information about your prospects. You know what they've looked at, you know what they were interested in, you know when they looked at it, you know what device they were using, so whether they're at work or at home. So you have a lot of information which puts you in a really good driving seat when you're engaging in a sales conversation. So no, it's not the cheapest thing to do, but if you've got good systems and processes, it will be effective. But it's having that thought out system first and adding the automation to speed up the process, rather than thinking automation is going to solve all your problems like some silver bullet.
Okay, thank you. You have next questions from Kevin. Is there a kind of trigger point at which it is worth a business implementing an automation tool?
Thank you, Kevin. It's a difficult question to answer because every business is of course different. However, it's thinking about the value of a sale to you. Typically, a salesperson will spend a lot of time cold calling and trying to engage with people. The beauty of a marketing automation system is you can see that engagement and you can see the interest and you can see the journey that they're on before you're wasting an expensive salesperson's time in engaging with them face-to-face or in a telephone conversation. So it's thinking about the value of a customer to you, and if that value is high, it's worth investing in automation. If you're doing lots of low-value transactions, it might not be worthwhile investing in automating the process at all. So I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. Your next question from Laura. How effective is this for my business growth?
It's very effective for the right business, and it will work for you if you've got good systems and processes. So I wouldn't recommend it for a startup. I would recommend it for a business that has a good track record of trading, good services or products to offer, and wants to expand that and become more efficient at getting those leads through the sales funnel. So as long as the process is good and your product or service is good, thinking about the process and automating it means that that's working for you 24/7. It means you can have a glass of wine on a Sunday evening, and if somebody's on your website and finding out more about your business, you don't have to deal with it. So in some ways it's absolutely ideal if you're a business owner, but of course it's getting the process right first that's the most effective use of the system.
Okay, thank you very much, Jill. Thank you for hosting today's webinar. I will be sending out a copy of the presentation and Jill's contact details out to you all very shortly. But before we close, just a quick reminder, this webinar is part of our service to our Smart Room members. And if you're not already a member or a BizSmart client and would like to access our archive of webinars, then please visit our website, biz-smart.co.uk, and go to the Smart Room page. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day and that you can join us again very soon.